Hi, in this video we will see how to use Python function on Python programming. At first we will define the function, after that we will see what are the main use of function, then we will discuss how we can create a Python function using Python programming. We will show you the keywords are required to create a function. We can create function different ways. We can create function without parameters or we can create function without some arguments, and functions can also return some value or not return some value. Finally, once we completed all of this, then we will go some of the advanced topics like functions with args and cargs. So those are actually advanced thing, and it is very complicated thing at the beginning, but it is very simple. I will make those things very simple way to explain you, so that you have very easy way to understand those things. So let's get started. Let's see at first what is function. Okay, function basically is a reusable block of code. Okay, there might be like one line, two line, or three lines, or multiple lines. It depends on the thing what you are trying to do. So we can define function is a block of reusable code. And what it will do, actually why we need this function, because this function is used to perform a single action. Okay, this is the simplest definition. Okay, function is a block of visual code which actually is used to perform a single action. I mistyped. There are many benefits of using functions. Some of them are dry, that means don't repeat yourself. Then others, reusability. Basically this and these are the same, and the best thing of function which I like most is easy debugging. So these are the main reasons we can use function, but there are many other reasons, but for me these are the most important thing. Like, we can reuse the function based on requirement, and we can easily debug our code easily. This is the basic thing of function. Now let's get started with some coding. So here we have one folder, few steps, and there is only on notes file where I put this thing, and then we have to create a file over there. Let me type the name of the file, like function tutorial dot py. This is a Python file, that's why I put Python file py. Okay, now how can we define function? Okay, so let's see. First, to define any function we have to define first this keyword def, that means definition. Okay, then we have to tell the function name. Suppose the function name is like abc but it should be meaningful. That will then it will be useful for you later to recall or to understand what it is doing. Okay, so here after definition we have to tell the function name, and then after that you can have the optional input. uh, okay, this input might be optional. You can also skip some for some particular cases you don't need. And then there will be a clone sign, and then after that you have to type your block. Okay, so block of codes. So this is a simple definition of function actually in Python. So we have to define by def this keyword, which means definition, and then we have to tell a function name something, and then after that inside this parenthesis you can put some argument, or you can also ignore, because it depends on your requirement. And then after that colon, and finally a block of codes, and this code must be separated by a tab. If it is like 3 space or 7 space, it will not work. It must be a tab. Okay, but you can also configure this indentation, but I'm telling you the default one. Okay, now let's create our first function. Okay, so I'm going to use Python file, and as this structure we'll create on function. So let's the function is def. We are using definition to create the function definition, and then the function name, like my function is my function. Okay, and let's put a parenthesis, and after that colon. Okay, so this is a simple definition of function, and after function we must have to add some blocks of code, 1 or 2 lines, 3 lines, doesn't matter. We have to do something based on a requirement, it will execute. But at the beginning I don't want to type anything in this function, so I'm typing pass, so there will be no error. Okay, now let's see. We want to execute this function, so we can execute this function. So before that, we need to print. Let's see what it is actually giving us. Okay, so if we call this print from there, I will not call actually. Basically, I will try to print what my function will give me. Okay, so I want to see what is actually my function, what it is trying to do. Okay, if we run, then we'll see it's nothing. Basically, it is giving function and my function and a memory address. Okay, so it is giving there is something that is a function, and it is giving us the memory address. Okay, and in the past there is nothing. Now it is doing this thing, right? It is giving some output, but if we call this method, what it will do? To call this method, we have to tell the we have to mention function name and then parentheses here. Okay, now let's run this thing again. So I'm going to run this, and I will see there is nothing, because here we didn't put anything. That's why it is showing none. Okay, now let's change something here. So suppose in this function we want to put something, and like we want to print online of text, like my first this is my function, this is a function, for example. I typed here, and then here we can call the function name. How we can call the name and then parentheses all together. Okay, so to call the function, we have to say my function and then parentheses. That's all. Okay, so here we define the function, and this is the block, and if we run this thing, then we'll see this is a function. Basically, it is printing whatever inside the function. If we have multiple lines, it will show also multiple lines, like this is another line. Okay, so if we clean this thing and if we run it, we'll see that it's trying to print those things. It printed those two lines. Okay, so basically this is the very basic thing of function. Okay, so we have to mention the function by the keyword def, that is definition, and then we have to mention the function name, and then after that we have to put a parenthesis and then colon, and then there will be some blocks of code, and we can call this method our function by using the function name, and we must have to define this parenthesis. So in Python there are many built-in functions. Okay, one built-in function we already used. If you notice, then we use that 2 times. I think still you are thinking what is that. Yeah, the thing is that this, so this is print and this is print. This is actually a function. Okay, we are calling this function, this is built-in function. So like this, there are many built-in functions, so we can also use those built-in functions for our daily uses. Using this built-in print function, what we are doing, we are printing something, and whatever we are passing in the parenthesis in the argument, it is printing like that. In this way, we can easily create a function without any parameter. Very simple function. This is the basic function. So in this function, we actually printed something by calling this function. Okay, now if you want to return something, then we have to use return, and then we have, suppose we want to return some string like hello. Okay, and suppose we don't want to print also this thing. I make it more simple. So here this is a function, and it is returning just on a string hello. Okay, so at that time, if we try to run this thing, it will not, basically it will not run anything. It will run, but it will not give us any outputs. So now let's clean this thing and run this. Okay, it's running. Okay, but there is no output, right? It should return something, but it is not giving anything, but it is already calling. Okay, so to print the output, we can actually use some print method that is actually a function. Okay, here in this way, and then if we run it, then it will print what it is returning. So let's run it. So now we are seeing hello. Okay, we can make it more nicely, like we can assign a variable like my value. Then we can also call this thing, we're cutting and putting it there, and then we're calling my value, and if we run, it will give us the same output. Okay, so in this way, Python function also give us some value. Basically it can return something. Okay, here we are returning something. If you want to return some other thing, you can also do. Now let's do one thing. Let's create a function which will actually have some parameter. It will do some calculation and it will give us some result. Okay, so one of the very simple example is like to figure out the square of a number. Okay, so we can let me delete everything and can start from the beginning. So we want to create a function which can actually square any number. So suppose the function name is like we can use def keyword to start writing a function, and then function name like square, square. Suppose we function name is square maker. Okay, and then parenthesis colon, and there should be body, and in square maker we should pass some value, right? Like we want to pass some value like x. Okay, and then here what it will do, it will actually get some calculation. It will do some calculation. We can also create some calculation over here. So suppose the result equal x star x. Okay, so it will get the square. Okay, and then finally it will return result. So this is on function which is actually making a square, and I'm called it as a square maker, but you can put in any name, and then inside it we are passing on parameter. Now if we call this method, then what will happen? So to call this method we have to type the square maker, then we have to pass the parameter, right? So here suppose the value is 2. Okay, and then if we try to print what is the value of that, we can also do print like this, and then if we run the script, it will do some calculation and it will give us the result. So let's run it. So here it is giving us 4. So if we want to pass like 7, okay, then if we run, then it will give us some value 49. So we just learned that using the parameterized function we can actually do something, and this is a parameterized method which is called square maker, which is actually giving us the square of any number. So here we saw that we are sending only one argument, but you can also send multiple arguments like square maker of 2 numbers, for example square x y. Okay, square maker. So what we can do, we can do something like y star y. So here we are passing 2 arguments like 7 comma 1. So what it is trying to do, it will square the first number, and then it will square the second number, and it will do the sum of these 2 numbers. Okay, square maker sum, for example the method name is square maker sum, and then we also change the square maker sum, and then we are passing 2 parameters. Okay, 2 values are passing because there are 2 arguments are there. Okay, and if we run, then it will give us some output. So let's run it, and we are seeing it is giving us, that means x is 7, right? So 7 times 7 is 49, and then y star y, or multiplied by y, which is 1, and finally it is adding those 2, and it is giving us 50. So in this way we can also pass multiple arguments inside a function. Till now we discussed what is function and how many types of function. Function might be different types. It might have some return type, or it doesn't have any return type. Okay, and there are some other things we checked. Python function may have single argument or multiple arguments. So these are the different types of function we saw. Now we will discuss another thing which is very important, or sometimes it is very confusing also. There is 2 terms. It is called args and kwargs. So we'll create on function which will actually insert the function, like we'll define on function def, then like myNewFunction. Suppose I typed it myNewFunction, and then there should be 2 arguments, something like that, and inside it there will be something like that. Okay, so till now this part is clear. I'm going to remove everything because we don't need it anymore, but if you need, you can practice by actually going from the beginning of this tutorial. Okay, anyway, so now this is a function. Okay, this is the definition which is very common to name a function, and then after that we have to put the name of the function. So definition of this function, and then inside this there is parentheses. We put 2 things. One is args and kwargs. Previously we put 1 2 3 4 5 parameters. We saw that. Okay, we can put, but here 2 important things, args and kwargs. So what is the meaning of args? So this is very confusing. When I started my Python programming at the beginning, I was also confused, but now now I'm clear, and it's very simple to understand. So basically args means this is actually list of arguments. Okay, this is actually list of arguments. And kwargs, this is another thing, kwargs, and there is double star here. and then this is basically dictionary. Okay, I'm putting some comment here, okay, so that there will be no error. Okay, so basically args means list of arguments. So here these args and chars, these are like variable, you can change it anything, like you can put it like a, b, or c, anything. These are the names of the argument. Okay, so but this is the common thing, most of the tutorials they mention args and chars, that's why I use this. But you can ignore this name and you can put any name, but this star and double star, this is very important, you should have to be careful. So here single star means this is list of arguments, there might be 1 2 3 4 arguments. Okay, and this double star means there should be a dictionary. The dictionary have like key value pair, this is like just something. Okay, so there should be key and value, so this is dictionary. So by single star, that means list of arguments, and double star means this is a dictionary. Okay, and we can also pass this thing, we can actually do some manipulation. Okay, so here we created one function, so let's discuss this arg first. Okay, so I'm creating a function like def my args function. I'm typing the simple way. Okay, trying to make you understand, and there should be pass, because I'm not writing anything, and here we should put args. Now here suppose there are something, right? So what it will function, this method will do, suppose we want to create one for loop here for then list for item in args. Okay, so here it will do print item. Okay, so I told you this args is a list of argument, right? I already mentioned here. Okay, that's why I'm using a for loop for item. It will take everything from there and it will try to print here. Okay, now let's call this function. Okay, so we can call myArgsFunction, and then we can pass some parameter. Okay, suppose we want to pass some fruits name like apple, then comma banana, and then suppose there is strawberry. uh, we pass couple of list of items, right? So I told you this is a list of arguments. Okay, so there are 1 2 3 arguments. Now if we run the escape, let's see what it will give us the output. So I'm going to run, and it is giving us this thing, right? Apple, banana, blackberry. So it is giving us all the output, this apple, banana. So this is actually a list of items. Okay, so by this args means we are passing like 1 2 3 arguments altogether, but we are not sure how many arguments we'll send. So if the arguments are not straight, then we use args. Now let's check cards. So I told you this is actually a dictionary. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let me create another function like the function name starts with def, then the name of the function my kwargs function, and inside it I told you there should be a dictionary, right? And the parameter should be kwargs, but this name is not mandatory, you can put any other name. Okay, then after that we want to do one thing, we want to print all the item list which the dictionary has. Okay, we can also put this argument is a dictionary, so basically it will have two things. One, it will have key, and there is and value. So if you want to print both key and value, we can use the for loop, and inside the for loop we can define the key value things. We can put key as name and value, and then we can put the whole arguments here, kwargs.item. So it will give all the dictionary list, and then after that we can print. So to print, we can also format by using fstring. By using that formatter, we can also do f and then a quote mark, and inside the quote mark we can put some curly brace, and inside the curly brace we can put the variable name. So here are two variables, one is name and value. So we have to put name, then we can use equal, and then after that we can use another curly braces, and inside it we can put the value. So it will print the key value pair like value in the console. Now we need to call this method. Okay, to call this method we call this function, and then after that we have to put all the arguments or parameters. Okay, so suppose I'm trying to put some like key value pairs thing, so which is dictionary. Okay, so I'm typing, so like apple, this is a fruit type, right? fruit, fruit. And then we can put some other things like cabbage, say bbage, cabbage, and this is vegetable, so for example vegi. Okay, so I'm passing these two things. You can pass many other things. Okay, now this is the function, and then we are calling this method by this dictionary. Now let's clean this thing and run the Python script. And what is showing? It is showing all the things like apple equal fruit and cabbage is veggie, right? So this is very important to understand. I think so. You already have the idea. So basically, we are using function, and in function we can use args and cars. Args means those are like list. Okay, so those are list, and those are positional arguments. And then we are using cars, which is actually a dictionary, and whose keys become separate keyword arguments, and the values become values of those arguments. Okay, and then I wrote two methods. One is this method and another is this method. Let me delete this thing and then increase the size, I mean all the screen, it will be easier. So here we used at the first example we use args, and then after that we use cars, but I use separately because so that it will be easier to understand. But you can make it more complicated way. You can mix all together, and also you can put here other parameter also like x comma y comma z, unlimited number of parameters. And also you can also do one thing, you can also assign some values over there also. So that's all. So I think till now what we learned what is function. We give a good definition of function, that is a block, that it is a block of reusable code that is used to perform a single action. And then we saw why we need to use function, or how you basically use the function. We use function just to do dry operation, like we don't want to repeat our code again and again to do that. And also it helps us for easy debugging. And after that we saw how to define a function. For function we must have to put def keyword, which means definition. Then we saw that we need to put a function name, and then after that parenthesis, and in the parenthesis we can put some arguments or not, it's optional. um, if we need, then we'll put, otherwise we will not put. And then a function may have a return type or not based on the requirement. And then we saw what is the difference between args and cars, and how we can actually use this with function. And that's all. So basically this function is very useful, and there are many built-in functions, and we saw already one of them is very common, that is print. Python has lots of built-in functions, but I'm not going to discuss this thing in this tutorial. Maybe in future tutorial I will discuss some of the built-in function. Like one of the common built-in function classes module is like math module or calendar module, random module. There are many actually. You can Google it, you can figure out this. So these are more or less about the function. Hopefully you have good understanding how we can actually create function, and how we can use this with this complex thing. This is advanced thing basically. And that's all for this video. If you like this video or dislike, just hit that like or dislike button. And if you are new to our channel, or still you didn't subscribe to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.